Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and in today's video we have PTR patch notes that have some really big changes. I'm actually going to start with those, and then we will go back up to the top and do this class by class. There will be chapters and stuff at the bottom, so you can go and see all the different classes there. But we're going to start with Augmentation, because this is the big one. Developers note, our goal with these changes is to reduce the power of stacking as many augmentation buffs as possible on the same 4 targets in raid scenarios. We want to support having multiple augmentation evokers in a raid, but also prevent having 4 of them feel required to do maximum damage. By forcing these buffs to spread themselves out, it should still be viable to have multiple augmentation evokers without being overpowered. A lot of people asked me in my stream about the augmentation 4 stack that all the high-end players were getting ready for next year and didn't really understand why that was going to happen. The TLDR for that is that augmentation buffs were multiplicative with each other and were going to be really powerful. You could have up to 4 on the same target. That was a nerf down from unlimited, which then people brought, 26 augmentation evokers and 2 unholy DKs or whatever, and those 2 unholy DKs just went off. But even with 4, each of those 4 augmentation evokers would have their... my prescience is going to multiply with your shifting sands and with your ebb and might. My shifting sands is going to multiply with your prescience and your ebb and might, right? And if you have 4 of those on the same people, those stats that you're adding, the versatility, the primary stat, and the crit are all multiplicative with each other. Not to mention that gets to then be on a target that is getting PI during the Breath of Eons windows as well. That is really efficient. So 4 augmentation evokers was very likely going to be the overwhelming majority of, top 100 guilds would be using that. And it would just be the guilds that knew about it now and that believed the people that knew about it now. And then the guilds that were like, I don't really think that's going to happen. And then oh, wait, okay, yeah, actually that's 20% more damage. We should be doing that as well. And that was, I think, going to be the way that this worked out. But this set of changes is going to be really good for halting that. If 2 Ebb and Mights are already active on an ally, Ebb and Might will now seek a nearby ally with fewer than 2 Ebb and Mights. So this drops us down from from being able to multiply 4 aug buffs on one target down to 2, which is obviously a lot less dangerous. It's still possible that 2 augmentation evokers might be the optimal number for a raid comp. I think there's a decent chance that will be true. And it's still possible that the 3rd and 4th might even be good if augmentation is good on its own merits. But then that would involve having Ebb and Mights on, 6 or 7 or 8 different targets at different times, which is a lot less degenerate than if you're stacking 4 onto the same 4 targets. Ebb and Might's priority to apply to other augmentation evokers has been reduced and will apply to other damage dealing roles first. Now this, by contrast, actually makes it a lot better to play multiple augmentation evokers from a quality of life perspective. If you are in a guild that is, a little bit less organized, you just want to play some augmentation evokers, you're wanting to play the game, it's going to be a lot less annoying to have them accidentally buffing each other. And I think this actually is a great combination of changes to make augmentation stacking less good for high-end play and more good for medium-end and low-end play. If 2 presciences are already active on an ally, prescience will no longer be able to be applied to that ally. When casting prescience with an enemy selected, its priority to apply to other augmentation evokers have been reduced and will apply to other damage dealing roles first. Again, reduce the power of stacking augmentation at the high end, increase the quality of life of having multiple augmentation evokers, especially in a raid setting. In a raid setting with multiple augmentation evokers, playing augmentation kind of sucked. You had all this stuff going on that you don't have going on in M+, especially if there's multiple augmentation evokers there, you just have this huge minefield of, what if I accidentally buff an augmentation evoker? That is a catastrophe if that ever happens, and they're basically making this a lot less likely to happen. Shifting Sands now prefers to apply to an ally who does not already have Shifting Sands. So this is actually going to mean that even the 2 augmentation evoker situation is going to be a little bit less good than it would have been before, because you're not going to have that chance of the 2 shifting sands both going on your highest prior targets. I think this still prios the people that have Ebb and Might on them. And I don't think you got your whole Ebb and Might crew to be shifting sands before. So I think this is functionally, this shouldn't be a huge change or anything, but I think again reduces the risk of big stacking value on this. And the 4-piece now allows buff stacks to overlap With Prescience having 2 charges, there's now a case where you can lose a stack of Trembling Earth before, since you can cast Prescience twice in a row. To alleviate the stacks may now overlap, so you don't waste part of the bonus. Again, quality of life improved here. So this is great. I mean, this is a fantastic set of changes for Augmentation. Bringing the top end of the spec down, bringing the degeneracy of the spec down, bringing the quality of life up as well, all at the same time. Really inspired set of changes here, and I think some really elegant solutions to this. So a lot more optimistic now about how Augmentation is going to look in the new tier. Definitely still possible that you're going to want to play the spec a lot because it's good, and it will still be better in high-end groups than low-end groups, but that's a lot less bad than, oh, we need to stack 4 because the 4th is better than the 3rd, and the 3rd is better than the 2nd, which creates a really nasty feedback cycle there, and also, of course, steals 4 raid spots from being even considered to the other options. So, yeah, huge change there for Augmentation. What a great day. What a time to be alive. All right, we've also got some Demon Hunter changes. Many talents have changed locations and or available connections. New talent, Champion of the Glaive, that gives Throwglaive 2 charges and 10-yard increased range. Fodder to the Flame and Unleash Power have been removed. Chaos Nova cooldown's been reduced to 45 seconds, and the Fury cost has been reduced as well. That's a sizable buff there, and actually 45 down from 1. In some dungeons, there are some things that this actually is a lot nicer against, right? So certain CDs for spells, now you're going to be able to get every other instead of every third with Chaos Nova, which will be nice. Concentrated Sigils no longer increases sigil durations by 2 seconds, and neither does Precise Sigils. Those were the talents that made sigils targeted either at your cursor, either at your target or at yourself, always, which it was annoying because sometimes you'd want to take these talents because they gave you sigil duration increase, but you still wanted to keep the ability to target your sigils wherever you wanted them, and now you don't have that incentive anymore. I continue to sort of yearn for some sort of way to have us talent into different ways for spells to function without them costing talent points that are the alternative is throughput, right? Because, like, how are you ever going to justify taking a talent that changes how your sigils target if you're giving up percentage DPS to do that, or survivability? The only way that they can make that work is if you have to talent through that to get to something below it. This reminds me a little bit of the Fel Rush thing as well on the Havoc side, where there's a Fel Rush, and then there's a new talent that lets you Fel Rush back for the next 2 seconds. Your next Fel Rush will send you back in the direction you came from, which obviously is like a nice quality of life option for how the spell should function, or could function. And if you prefer that, it would be nice to be able to talent that. But again, even if you prefer that, it sucks to be forced to lose throughput to choose it, and I think in that case lose a sizable amount of throughput. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the solution is to that, but I do think it's a hole in the current talent system, is that it's really hard for them to put in these sorts of things that maybe would have used to be like glyphs, that were like, oh, this isn't really a throughput increase, but it's nice, or it's preference for how this could function. Even stuff like how mages can change how their blink functions based on whether it's directional or movement. I think some more support for more of that kind of thing without having to expend a talent point on it would be a good way to change things. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but most specs that I know of have at least a couple of different things where it's like, yeah, I'd like it if I had a couple different options for how this spell functioned, but I'm not spending a talent point on it. Live by the Glaive heal value has been increased. That's the thing that procs when you either parry or get parried to give you some healing. Havoc has been, again, either they've changed locations or made some choice nodes, primarily among those in the bottom half of the tree. Soul Rend's been renamed to Soul Scar. Initiative's crit bonus has been reduced. Fel Barrage now has a maximum duration of 8 seconds, but the Fury cost per volley has been reduced, and the damage per volley has been reduced. Interesting. So this is a nerf to the high end of what's possible here. And it also means that it's no longer really going to function like Breath of Sindragosa or anything like that, where you would be trying to maintain this for as long as possible, because there's now a ceiling on it of 64 Rage or 64 Fury that can be spent on it. Obviously, the total damage the damage per volley has gone down, but the damage per Fury is going up here. So it's going to be a lot easier to play as well, and you'll just press this and make sure you have 64 Fury or close to it and generate some Fury over the next couple of seconds and then get full value out of it. So I think that's probably good. I don't know. I mean, like the Breath of Sindragosa E playstyles are controversial, right? Divisive. And this takes that away from being something like that. The two set's been redesigned. Blade Dance consumes a charge of Throwglaive to fire at your primary target for 100% damage, and each slash has a 50% chance to Throwglaive an enemy for 35% damage. Notably, that Throwglaive wouldn't consume one of your charges, but the first one only works and consumes a charge if you have one. The 4 set has been updated that says Throwglaive reduces the remaining cooldown of the hunt by 2 seconds, and the hunt's damage over time effects last 6 seconds longer. Interesting there. And these Throwglaive procs are going to work off of the 50% chance to Throwglaive, I think, as well. So a little bit of a redesign there. They talked about this a little bit last week, kind of being the direction they were looking at taking this. Vengeance, they've moved a few talents. They've buffed Shear, Fracture by 10%, Soul Cleave by 7%, and Throwglaive by 30%. Throwglaive by 30% is actually really nice for threat generation as well. Calcified Spikes now provides its benefit if Demon Spikes is refreshed, in addition to when it expires. Great there. Actually, really great change. Calcified Spikes, so for those who don't know how this functions, this is a damage reduction that you'd get when Demon Spikes fell off. But it was really weird, because sometimes you would want the damage reduction, but you'd also want Demon Spikes, so there was incentive to even right-click off or cancel aura your Demon Spikes and then do a new Demon Spikes to get yourself your Calcified Spikes. And also have Demon Spikes up, or even just right click. Like if magic damage was coming in that you wanted a DR against, you just go Demon Spikes, cancel Demon Spikes to get a full Calcified Spikes. Much nicer here to let you just press Demon Spikes and get the Calcified Spikes. And then of course here's the catch. Now we can't do the canceling our Demon Spikes manually, which was again. So actually this will be a nerf to the ability. Like you can't just spend one Demon Spikes charge unless you plan far enough in advance to have it be expiring at the right time to get full value out of Calcified Spikes. Now you're going to have to spend 2 if you want that against magic damage. But I mean, this is nice. It was a stupid way of... It was weird gameplay. It was definitely pretty skill intensive, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, there's no way this should function this way. But I personally enjoyed gaming around my Calcified Spikes that way. Meteoric Strikes now reduces the cooldown of Infernal Strike by 10, was 8. Fell Flame Fortification now reduces magic damage taken while Immortal is active by 12%, was 10%. Feast of Souls healing value has been increased by 100% and no longer has an initial tick. Bulk Extractions cooldown's been reduced to 1 minute. Soul Barrier's absorb value has been increased by 28%. Fiery Demise has been buffed as well to 25/50 from 20/40. And Focus Cleave now increases Soul Cleave damage to primary target by 50%, was 40%. Interesting. This is already a lot of damage as well. So, and Soul Cleave is also being buffed up here. Maybe Vengeance is going to be doing a lot of damage, perhaps here. All right, we've got some Balanced Druid changes. They've buffed Star Surge by 6% and Shooting Stars by 15%. Not for PvP though. Cool. I think this might be the best way to get Mark of the Wild. It's interesting. Druid in Aberrus the Shadowed Crucible was largely a spec where you would play it, or a class where you would kind of find the least bad way to get Mark of the Wild. Different guilds would play, Balance or Resto or whatever, depending on whether they thought, whichever they thought was the least bad way to get Mark of the Wild in a lot of cases. I feel like Balance is likely to be the answer for that next tier, but not sure. That's my early guess. So more buffs moves me even more in that direction when we're thinking about what the raid comp is going to look like next tier. Guardian Druid. The 2 set's been slightly redesigned. Rage you spend during Rage of the Sleeper fuels the growth of Dream Thorns, which wreath you in their protection after Rage of the Sleeper ends, absorbing a percentage of damage dealt to you while the thorns remain, up to a value per rage spent. Interesting. So the 2 set's going to key off of the rage spent during the rage instead. Okay. The 4 set says Blazing Thorns value capped at 100% of max HP. And they fixed an issue causing its damage to be dealt twice. Hunter fixed an issue where several talents or set bonus effects that modified damage dealt or critical damage did not properly affect the damage of the poison injection talent. Beast Mastery, bonus pets from Call of the Wild now spawn on top of your target rather than by your side. That's functionally a buff, right? This spec was already doing a lot of damage on PTR too. Survival, the empowerment buff from Coordinated Assault now lasts for 5 seconds, was 3. And they fixed an issue where it had the wrong spell description. Mage, Arcane. Fix an issue where clear casting would trigger off of non-mage spells. I wonder what that was. Fix an issue where gaining clear casting from cascading power wouldn't correctly gain all the clear casting modifiers, including Slipstream's channel while casting benefit. Fix an issue where consuming a concentration proc would not also grant Nether Precision if talented. Fix an issue with Arcane Surge not splashing beyond 5 targets, as indicated in the tooltip. Siphon Storm's tooltip has been upgraded to clarify that it grants 1 Arcane Charge. Okay, so a bunch of issues fixed here. Monk, Brewmaster. The 4-set stagger absorb value has been capped at 100% max HP, similar line of text to what we saw with the Bear Druid 4-piece. They just want to make sure that these values don't get too high or that you can't get too much out of them. Mistweaver, Rising Sun Kick is now granted by default. The location of Healing Elixir and Zen Pulse has swapped. The starter build is updated, and they fixed an issue that caused Tear of Morning and Thunder Focus T's enveloping mist effects to not properly be increased by 25%. Paladin, fixed an issue causing misalignment between Consecration and Mastery Divine Bulwark. I don't know what that means, but okay, that's cool. Priest, Shadow. Surge of Insanity now triggers from every 2 casts of Devouring Plague, was 3, so that's a buff there. The Shadow rotation slowed down more than we were intending from our changes earlier in this patch, and we've seen similar feedback from the community. We maintain our goal to reduce how busy the Shadow rotation is, so we're not reverting Surge of Insanity to its Fury Incarnate state, and instead reducing the cast required. We're also increasing the insanity generated from the associated spells to further distinguish their power from the base version of the spells. And you can see that here, which is slight buffs to the insanity gen on Mind Spike or Mind Flay insanity. Okay, so this should... yeah, I do think that a middle ground between the 2 different versions of Shadow is probably be good. They've also nerfed, once again, the 2-set here to 20% effectiveness of additional deaths from 35, which I believe was previously 50. And they also now deal reduced bonus inescapable torment damage. And then the 4-piece is also getting nerfed here to... Actually, they're nerfing what it does if it's going to buff a Shadow Word Pain, so they're nerfing the single target of it, but they're buffing how much it'll affect a Shadow Crash. Interesting. Which... Yeah, Shadow was another one of those specs that was doing a lot of damage on PTR testing so far. We'll see how that ends up working out, but I think moving some of their single target down a little bit. I mean, this is functionally a buff as well, so maybe the single target doesn't even go down, even when you factor in the 2-set nerfs, given the buffs here. And then this is a nice AoE buff to the 4-piece, too. Rogue. Assassination. Exsanguinate renamed to Sanguine Blades. I think that makes sense. Exsanguinate sounds like an active. They decided to go with the passive version of this ability. Sanguine Blades sounds good. Envenom's damage has been increased by 8%. Kingsbane damage has been reduced by 5%. Indiscriminate Carnage targets, secondary targets now prioritize enemies that are not affected by Garrote and Rupture. Again, this is the one where you apply bonus Garrotes and Ruptures. And that is nice. Nice quality there. The set bonus now deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets, which was previously 8 targets. So they're lowering the effectiveness of this in mid-sized AoE. Outlaw. Triple threat chance to trigger has been increased 15%. Count the odds chance to trigger has been reduced to 8%, but it can now also be triggered by Sinister Strike. Okay, so far these both seem good. Hidden opportunity effectiveness of chance to strike twice has been reduced to 80%, was 100%. Fix several issues that caused the 4-piece bonus to be lost. Refresh duration of Roll the Bones combat enhancements now matches other enhancements. I don't know exactly what that means. Fix some edge cases that caused a Mirdrasil set bonus to grant a combat enhancements without a buff. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Outlaw is another one of those specs that's looking really, really good on PTR. This seems like although I think some of that is due to a Blade Flurry bug, which is maybe not mentioned here, but either way, seems like not too massive changes there. Subtlety. Shadow Strike damage increased by 7%. Perforated Veins effect now applied after striking with Backstab 4 times was 5. The Rotten now causes your next 2 attacks instead of just 1 to deal 35% increased damage was 50%. So that is a buff, I believe, to this. Replicating Shadow's secondary targets now prioritize enemies that are not affected by Rupture. Okay, so there's our rogue changes. Ellie Shaman. The 4-set here is being nerfed to cause your next 2 lava bursts to strike at extra targets was 3. I think Ellie Shaman needs some single target love. I don't think I think AoE nerf, so this is an AoE nerf to the 4 pieces value, right? But Yeah, I think they should maybe buff the single target on that spec. I'm not 100% sure, but that's currently my there. I mean, this spec is very good at like cleavey situations, which I understand this nerf here, but I do think the patchwork is something they should look at maybe bringing up for them. Not super confident in that take. That's we haven't really tested that much with an Shaman, but I've looked through a lot of logs, and that would be my current guess for what they should do to it. Resto Shaman, chain healing increased by 20%. Okay, a little buff there. Warlock, demo. Developer's note, Caustic Presence is doing exceedingly well in single target situations and even more so when paired with Summon Demonic Tyrant. This reduction in damage is heavy, but Caustic Presence should retain its identity as a useful AoE-centric talent while not becoming the correct answer in all situations. Additionally, we want to keep the synergistic benefit of extending Vile Fiend's duration via Summon Demonic Tyrant to capitalize on a stronger Caustic Presence. Lastly, we are increasing the throughput of Demonology's tier set to align with the throughput of other tier sets. Vile Fiend's Caustic Presence damage reduced by 50%. Eye of Gul'dan and Pit Lord now benefit from haste and crit. Pit Lord has been buffed again on the Fellseeker damage. Doombrand now deals reduced damage beyond 8 targets and no longer deals damage when dispelled. Its damage has been increased, though, by 150%, and Doombolt Volley's damage has also been increased by 150%. Immutable Hatred has been redesigned. When you consume a demonic core, your primary Felguard carves your target, dealing physical damage. All right. I'm not enough of a demo scientist to really have takes on too much of this. I guess I knew that their set bonus was looking pretty weak, but the spec was looking pretty strong, so this probably moves both of those in good directions. Also, in general, nice whenever things benefit from haste and crit. Always kind of weird when some stuff of your kit doesn't, unless it's like an intentional choice. Destro. Summon Infernal damage increased by 50%, and Shadowburn damage increased by 15%. Warrior, arms, all ability damage increased by 6%. Protection. Amir Jasil 4-piece bonus, consuming Thunderous Roar now deals 100% of its remaining damage, which I think they made the other bleeds consume for less than the full percent of their remaining damage, but Thunderous Roar, because you can't immediately reapply it, I think it's very good to make sure that you're going to get full damage out of that, actually, so it seemed like a good change. I'm pretty sure that I mentioned this when they made the change to it last week, as being something that seemed kind of weird, or that might present a weird gameplay compared to the other bleeds, where you don't mind consuming them for less value because you're going to be able to reapply them before they're, within that duration still. Fury also potentially a notable absent here. I don't know. Fury hasn't been looking too bad, but since they made that change last week that functionally nerfed it by quite a bit, made the rotation a lot less bad to play, but I'm not sure. Maybe something they still are gathering data on or something to see if it needs some love. Anyways, that is our set of patch notes today. All in all, I would say the notes here are, I mean, the augmentation stuff, I would describe this as a home run set of changes to augmentation. Goes a really long way towards making the augmentation the worst case scenarios for what augmentation would do to next raid tier have gotten a lot less bad here. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and check out my Twitch stream as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.